everyone. So today we are going to talk about the film Moonlight, which is very exciting. We're just going to start off with introducing ourselves. So my name is Stephanie. It's been about a year that I'm in the Carleton Film Society. And with that, I am also a communications and media studies and film studies student, 4th year at Carleton. So we have two guests today. So I'm going to first start off with Jack. Introduce yourself.
All right. So I'm Jack. My pronouns are they, them. I'm going into my 5th year at Carleton in film studies, and I'm minoring in women and gender studies and Indigenous studies.
Woo. All right. Woo. I'm John. I'm studying communication and media and film studies at Carleton as well, and I'm so excited to chat movies.
Awesome! I'm excited too. It's always exciting to talk about these fun topics. And so for today, we're talking about Moonlight. So we for sure want to know what your thoughts are about it. So make sure to comment in the comments below, and we're going to see the live comments. So very excited to hear what you guys have to think. So just going into, if you have never seen it, the resume or the summary or plot line of it is a young African-American man grapples with his identity and sexuality while experiencing this everyday struggle of childhood, adolescence, and burgeoning adulthood. There you go. So the director is Barry Jenkins, and I really think so first of all, yeah, it kind of goes with 3 different parts of the story. So the first part is his childhood, so he's about maybe 8-10 years old, and then we have like his adolescence, kind of getting out of high school, like at the end of high school, I would say, and then we have like 12-ish years later when he's an adult and a completely different person than what we would have expected. So this is kind of the spoiler-free section. We're going to talk more into the spoilers right now. So if you haven't seen the film, make sure to go see it. I think it's available on Amazon Prime with a subscription to like Hollywood something. It's like one of their subscriptions that you can take. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. And then afterwards, you can come back in here and listen to our discussions. So bye to people that don't want to spoil themselves. So we're just going to start off with our first thoughts about the film. So John, you want to first say what were your first impressions? When was the first time you watched it? Tell me more about that.
All right. I watched it yesterday, and I watched a little bit today as well. But my first thoughts, honestly, was of how human and how real it looked, especially through the cinematography. And I guess it won at the Oscars, I believe, best picture. And so just the lighting, it told the story, it really connected with the characters. And that was really like what really stuck out for me.
Awesome. What about you, Jack?
I saw Moonlight like around when it first came out because I was really excited because it was like one of the first in recent Oscars time that was a movie about like gay people, and it was about Black people, and I was just like very excited. And when I saw it, I thought that it was amazing, and I just like fell in love with Barry Jenkins' work. And there was like all that drama where they called La La Land at the Oscars, and then they were like, "Oh, just kidding, Moonlight won." And then that was like, wow, that was an emotional moment for me. And yeah, ever since I always use that film as an example of like, this is the queer film that you should watch when you want to get into queer film.
All right. Well, I'm glad that I see that perspective, because for me, I watched the film after the Oscars for the first time. So I was I still am a huge La La Land fan. La La Land is my favorite film of all time, by far. So for me, I was rooting for it 100%. Many reasons why I love that film. I guess we'll get into a discussion about it another time. But this film for me was like super important. Anyways, it was a breakthrough. But Moonlight, when I watched it, because it won Best Picture, and I think I had like this thought in my mind being like, coming into it being like, I hate this movie already because it went against my favorite film. So I think I came into it kind of with a negative mindset. So it did, when I finished the film, I was like, that's it. That's the movie that won against my favorite film. Really? Not that it's a bad movie. Not at all. It's that I really thought that it was very deep with the characters. You really got to see a lot about it. But there was one thing that was really missing for me, and that to me was like the connectivity and the gaps that were in between. Maybe it was in between the time spans, or I feel like there was missing something for me. At least that's one of my first thoughts about it. And when I rewatched it today, I still came out of it with that feeling of, I feel like there was missing some connectivity with the characters, or with me at least. I couldn't connect to these stories, but perhaps that's because I have a different identity than these characters. Perhaps it's because I don't understand, and maybe I have a privilege or some stereotypes that I'm holding against what is happening in the film. So I think that's why it's important, because it made me realize that kind of privilege that I had, and maybe not understanding or having that connectivity with the characters is perhaps why I felt that way. But I guess we'll get a little bit more into that. But I'm curious to see. So Jack, for you said that this was like I'm looking for the word, an important film for you for queer film. So what do you think really stood out to you for it to be like a queer film?
I think there's like so many things. So
go ahead. The floor is yours.
Yeah. First of all, like the fact that the film goes into the intersections of identity of being a Black man and being a gay man, I thought that was a really important story to tell, because a lot of queer film was mainly about white queer people. And with like examples like But I'm a Cheerleader, that's like one of my favorite, but it's like all white people. Or like Brokeback Mountain, it's white people. So Moonlight really like was like, Barry Jenkins was like, no, it's gonna be a different story, and it's gonna be an important story. And I think that the fact that it was shown at the Oscars, it was nominated for an Oscar and it won an Oscar, was a really big step for queer Black folks and the film industry. Mm-hmm. Because before, like, you didn't really see a lot of that. And like, of course, La La Land was a really great film. I loved that film, but it was a very white film. So it was really exciting that the Oscars didn't, like, yet again have a white film win. But other than that, like, I think that it also was like, it was extremely emotional. It was heartbreaking. It just like induced so many emotions for me. And I feel like movies that can make you feel so much are really important. And like, I really felt like I was there with the characters, and the stuff that he was going through was just like absolutely powerful and important to watch and portray on screen. And so, yeah, I thought that for those reasons that it was really amazing. And also just like, I love Barry Jenkins' directing style. I loved like the colors, the soundtrack, the score, the actors, the acting style that was adapted, just like everything was great for me.
Yeah, I really get what you mean. Like, the way that the Barry Jenkins, the way that he films is kind of, it's very subjective to the main character. When one of the examples I have in mind is when he's learning how to swim, and you get kind of like the perspective in the water of feeling like you're going to drown because half of the water is coming onto the frame, and it's like it really puts you into that perspective of, okay, like learning how to swim. But that's just like one of the very small examples of what it was like to live under his skin. And I think that's really what the powerful way that he filmed, and whether it was with like formalistic shots or with realism shots, like he really mixed between the two to really make you feel what the character was feeling, whether it was when you weren't hearing, example, what the principal was saying after he was beaten up, or there were so many different ways that he was doing this, but I think it was really just another way to connect with the character. And yeah, but that's the thing. That's not what I mean when I mean that I didn't connect with it. What I mean is like the gaps in between, because it made me more question what happens between this time and this time that I missed. What did I miss between the 10-ish years that he was very quiet and very lonely not lonely. I don't know I'm trying to find the word for it, but it's kind of like he was very
like
quiet.
Solemn.
Yeah, solemn, to becoming this kind of like his father figure, I would say, but like So it made me just question, like, what happened between this time that I didn't understand? Like, what was it the problem with his identity? What was it because of the influence of his father figure? Was it because of being bullied? Was it because of being beaten by the guy that he first was intimate with? Or was it because he didn't feel loved or understood? So these were things that maybe they were self-explanatory, but for me, I felt like I really needed to have those gaps filled for me to really connect with the characters. So yeah, that's how I felt about it. But what about you, John?
It's interesting. Yeah, to me, I thought it was kind of clear because you start out with him so young, and he's you obviously see why he wants to communicate with his facial gestures instead of his words by all those problems in his life. So that was like the clear jump to his I guess solemn high school life. But then it ended when they had that fight, and then he was arrested when he was really not in the wrong at all. So to me, it was clear, like you see this all the time, people being arrested for reasons that, are totally unjust. So it was like, to me, it was like, it was filled in the blanks. Like, exactly from where he came, to be pushed into that situation that probably just so impossible to get out. And then that kind of made that the next person that he was, which took after Juan, his father figure, being the drug dealer. So to me, like, the most important part of this film was the systemic oppression that you see mixed with the toxic masculinity that forces you to not be your truest self. And I had to Google it. I thought at first that it's a Moonlight, the blue light, especially that story where she's a little with blue light. It's supposed to represent vulnerability, but really it's the innermost self. And because you are your most truest self in the light of the moonlight. So and I guess that scene when they kiss for the first time, Kevin and Chiron, that was to me. Well, first of all, maybe I'm going too far. I wanted to say that I love diving into movies without knowing anything about it. And I know that we're here talking through Pride Month, but I was watching it, super hyper masculine with the characters and whatnot. So that kiss threw me off. I was not expecting it at all. It was just like, whoa, holy crap. I didn't even feel that tension between those two characters. And yeah, it just threw me off. And um, yeah, I was like, damn, Chiron, like, I wish he could just, like everything around in his life suppresses him. And that was probably the most devastating part for me. So those are my thoughts there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's oppression on all sides of him in some way, or all sides that identifies him. But I think that the film, what it's trying to do is it's trying to kind of challenge those those categories, those systems that he's in.
Constraints, yeah.
Yeah, constraints that he's in. I think that's what it's trying to do. For example, it challenges the stereotypes of a black man that can't swim, kind of thing. So it challenges that. It challenges that a drug dealer can have compassion and emotions, and that he's more than just a mean person, Hell's Angel kind of guy. He's much more than that, and he has much more feelings. And I think that that was really important to show this kind of representation. And with the oppression, I mean, of just everything that he is with his identity, and having to deal with growing up not understanding what the word faggot and drugs, what are they, and that he has to ask these questions, these very difficult questions at a time that it's like, how can someone be like have this need of, how can there's be so much oppression on these topics that a child needs to go through so much hate and so much because of things that are just I don't know how to explain myself, but it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I thought that was really well done, how it challenged all of these things into the movie. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, is there anything else, Jack, that you really want to say about identity or oppression or masculinity that really stood out to you into this film?
Well, I mean, yeah, I feel like the film really speaks well to like I talked about it a bit before, but like intersectionality and yeah, how these different oppressive forces in his life are really like contributing to like dragging him down and feeling like he can't be his best self. And yeah, I agree with what you said that like I feel like the film really does well to like combat these stereotypes and makes them seem like very compassionate and like the opposite of what like the like traditional awful stereotypes are for like gay men, for black men, for drug dealers. And yeah, I think that it does a really good job of like sort of showing how these stereotypes can affect your life, but also how you can combat those stereotypes in the best way that you can.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's all about like the situation that you're given. You know, especially with the stereotypes, like this movie in its rawest form really shows, I find, you know, just the context, like the situation, why people have to make these choices. Like, for example, that drug dealer, he, you know, he probably didn't have any other opportunities in his neighborhood. So, you know, he had to, um, like, you know, sell rocks to Chiron's mother, but you know, then it just shows like the human aspect, like his guilt so strong that he ends up taking care of him, and which ends up crushing his mother in another sense. So it's just kind of like a domino effect of like systemic oppression that that is this whole movie. I find it's like it was really eye opening to me, especially you know, man of supreme privilege here. So it was like I was shocked like to see his mother like change so quickly, like from you know being so lovey, and then like when she just tries to get the money from Chiron, like you know, it kind of crushed me, like to see you know how your life could be just stripped away like that, like from your the connections of your family like that. So it's just you know you totally feel for these because I thought this was a really important movie, and I'm really glad it won. And I'm you know that scandal at the Oscars, like that was terrible, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It was, but not to say that this movie wasn't amazing as well. Like the last scene, at least for me, oh wait, I'll talk about that later. But I wonder, like, why do you think that he didn't embrace his sexuality and himself in general because of all the oppression that he went through? Like, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that definitely I mean, it's no secret that it's hard to like be black and be gay because when you look at like the traditional sort of picture of what a gay man is, it's just a white man, a cis man, and he's just like living his happy gay life with another white man. And so you don't really see people of color represented a lot in the LGBTQ community. And further, you don't see queer people a lot in like black communities because there's that like stereotype. So I think that obviously it's hard for me to like speak to that as like a white person, but I mean you can see through the film that it's really pointing to the difficulties that a queer black person will face in their community.
I think you replied to that like perfectly. I think exactly like that's the intersectionality of it, like the main representation, whether it is through movies right now. I'm thinking about Boy Erased. I'm thinking about Call Me by Your Name, and there's so many out there that I could go on, but like those are the ones that really spoke to me. But that's because they were maybe it's because it was white representation or something like that. But I don't know. Maybe I don't know how to explain myself, but it's like those are the kinds of identities that like we are being shown on the screen most of the time. So I think that that's true. Thinking about it, this is the only like black representation of a queer or a gay man that I've ever seen. So that's really eye opening. I never even thought of it that way, but that's my privilege of not having to think about it that way. So yeah. What about you, John? Do you think like that's really what oppressed him to not necessarily embrace his sexuality and going into this influence that he had about, you know, having a crown and stuff on his dash and
Yeah.
having gold teeth and just being what we really didn't expect.
Yeah, I think it just kind of molded him, like his situation, like his surroundings. Maybe it's a way of survival because, and you could tell from his young age being the weak guy, you know, little, and then high school, he's always picked on for, you know, not being the toughest sort of guy. Like it's, yeah, I think yeah, it's just a product of his surroundings, you know, that really molded his third form. Um, yeah, I think it really goes deep, and I find as well that cinematography really lets you just sink into um, the human aspect of it, even going into the details of like the anamorphic lens I found when he was young, when he was little in the first act. Um, the anamorphic lens really, you know, kind of shrunk him into like a tight space in the frame where, you know, you really focus on, you know, maybe how little he is, so then you really understand where he's coming from, as well as sharing his POV. You know, those subtle things really pull you in, and you know, no doubt the other characters around him, you know, always giving him a tough break, even his family too. So it's yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And yeah, one of the things I wanted to bring up is like when I saw the last scene, I 100% thought about Les 400 coups from François Truffaut, which is like a classic film studies film that we watch. And just the last scene, if you don't remember, it's no, oh my god. You see I'm with my names, with the names? Was it Cheyenne?
Sharon.
Sharon, oh my god. So I was like, it starts with a C. Sharon, there you go. So Sharon is at a young state, so he's about like 8 to 10 years old. He's looking out at the beach, and he turns around near the camera. This is, in my opinion, very similar to how like Les 400 coups ends, and I was like, this is a clear reference to this film. Like I thought, at least to me, it was like this is a clear metaphorical reference to this film. And the film Les 400 coups is pretty much about a boy that gets beaten by his parents, and that he goes to this kind of like school for like not good children, basically. And it's all about identity in a different way, and living in a difficult situation in a different way, in poverty and etc. So I think like this was kind of like a wink to this film in some way, because it is showing different kinds of identity issues and living in different kinds of oppression and masculinity issues that are surrounded by their living. So I think like, at least for me, did you guys get this impression as well when you watch it? I don't know. For me, it was like 100% like this is Les 400 coups. But did you ever think about that?
It didn't catch me at first, but I can see that, yeah, that film is totally about like, you know, your surroundings that form you and your identity. Like I see that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely could notice that too. I think that Barry Jenkins takes a lot of influence from different like film eras and film waves. And so yeah, I could see that for sure.
Cool. Film studies. Film studies did something to me. I actually learned something. Okay, I'm sorry. I was excited about it when I saw it. I was like, "Ooh, I found a reference." Like I'm Quentin Tarantino making references into my films. Basically, that's how I felt, because Quentin Tarantino basically watched so many films that's why he put references into his own films. So that's how I felt. I was like, I found one. Anyways, I was happy. Any other themes, Jack, that really stood out to you that you'd like to share during this discussion?
I mean, one thing that I was thinking about is more on like the history of Barry Jenkins' career as a director. Because I did, for one of my film studies classes, we learned a bit about the genre of Mumblecore. And Barry Jenkins had a film called Medicine for Melancholy, which sort of like fell under that term. And I also have the definition of mumblecore for anyone who doesn't know.
Please.
Go ahead. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a subgenre of independent film characterized by naturalistic acting and dialogue, sometimes improvised, a low-budget film production, an emphasis on dialogue over plot, and a focus on the personal relationships of people in their 20s.
Am I the only one that lost her?
Oh, no, I thought we were all frozen there. No, I think we're...
Okay. Okay, we lost them. Okay, well
Oh
then.
no. Am I
You're
back?
back. You're back.
You're back.
You're back.
Oh no. Okay.
Thank you very much, Jack,
You're back.
for
You're
that.
back. You can go. Go
Wow.
ahead.
Okay, so yeah, Medicine for Melancholy is that, and I think that he brought a lot of aspects of the mumblecore genre into Moonlight as well, because it really focuses on the relationships of people in their 20s and 30s. It really focuses on dialogue, and there is of course plot, but I think it is a very like dialogue driven movie.
Mhm.
And
With a lot of silence.
yeah.
With a lot of silence
Yeah.
too.
I think
there's like 3 words.
yeah. I
But it
feel
was
like
about
silence is part of dialogue.
You're right.
It
You're
is. It absolutely is. Everything has a balance, and nobody can speak forever. Yeah, I totally feel that connection to like the low budget improv kind of indie feel, like the handheld cameras, camera shots that we had in this film. I wanted to add one thing about the name calling, because we're talking about the innermost self and how we represent ourselves. And so Little never really wanted to be called Little, and he always wondered like, why are people putting putting labels on him? And I think that that's a great theme to talk about, especially with Pride Month as well. Like he never, like, same thing that goes with stereotypes, like labels, they're given to you, right? But I found like at the end in the third act, when Little became black, he when he finally meets Kevin again, before he was like, Kevin, like, why you calling me black? And then at the end, when Kevin meets him, he calls him boss and he calls him Poppy. And I thought, hey, that's a little spin on labels there, switching it around, telling him, what he maybe wants to hear, instead of labeling him with that old mentality that Kevin had before in high school.
I mean, there's one right at the beginning when he says that he's being called a faggot, and he's just like a kid.
Mhm.
I can't even imagine like being called something that you identify as, and that people are thinking that it's a bad thing. It's like, and then again with black, and it just frustrates me that these are still conventions that people are still believing, and that they're still putting onto people, and that a lot of people are just saying like it's a joke and things like that. But it's like, name calling can mean so much, because we put categories to these names, and whether it is a faggot, a lot of people will see it as something that's negative, when it's just about someone. It's trying to treat someone that is gay, or that identifies as gay, as something that is bad, and that's just like, it's unacceptable that we're still living in a world that uses these kinds of names to hurt people, and these kinds of words to hurt people. Yeah. Well, I'm happy that was brought up. And is there any other themes that really stood out to you guys that you want to share, or that you, some final thoughts about the movie, or about just LGBTQ plus stories that you'd like to share? Putting it out there.
Maybe I got one comment.
Go ahead.
It was interesting. Even with what we study, it is really white, obviously, because of all the previous movies back in the day were all white. But I think that there's a huge importance to like mix that up and see different things. But the only one movie that I've seen through school is it was an African American, what's the word? It was like a like a film that's an experimental film, but really it was like kind of like a documentary in my eyes. So I thought it was interesting that it was like labeled an experimental film, because it was like so different from maybe the norm. So I thought that was that was interesting. And maybe we got to see some other films mixed in instead of having to take like an African film course, for example. Mix it up, and especially world history. Not to throw anybody on the bus, not that's not my intention here, but just to mix it up more than just seeing like all the Hitchcocks and etc. So
Yeah,
I'll throw that out there.
I agree. I think that there needs to be more diversity into films, and we don't just create a white history, because there is a very rich history of Asian films, of Black films, films made by Black people or African Americans, or I mean, there's so much history behind it, but we're just seeing the things that are very like white, and so it's important to have that kind of representation, in my opinion, and that there needs to be not just representation with the people that are making the films, but also on what's being shown on screen. And I think that that's really important, and that's, as a filmmaker, that's really what I want to strive to do, to help create more representation on the screen. So yeah, what about you, Jack? Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Well, I think I would like to suggest a few more queer Black films.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, so Watermelon Woman is a really great film. Also Rafiki, which is like an African film about like a lesbian couple. It's really great, really powerful. And also Pariah is another great one as well. And I think all of these films really well like discuss the intersections of being Black and queer, and they're really great. And I would also recommend you watch If Beale Street Could Talk, which is Barry Jenkins' other film.
Great film.
It's not gay, but it's really good still. So
Agreed. I really like that film. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think this kind of
Thank you so much for that, Jack. That's awesome. My crash course right here.
Crash course. Yeah, so I think this kind of concludes. We're already at the 32-minute mark. So thank you, everyone, for staying long and for listening to us talk about Moonlight and have this really fun debate about masculinity, oppression, identities. I mean, there's so much here to unpack. So really, thank you so much for both of you for joining, and for everyone else that has listened into our conversation today. So thank you so much. I hope that you all also enjoyed the film, and make sure to also comment below what are your thoughts about our discussion or about the film in general, and we'll make sure to come reply to you guys. Awesome. So just saying a big thank you to Jack and John for joining, and it was really fun to hear your opinions today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank
you. Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.